Guys, what is going on? Blossom's back, and welcome back to another episode of Top Drives. Today I want to ask myself a very simple question. What are the best of the worst cars in the game, okay? We're talking about RQ65, our Jerry friends. I mean, the OG Jerry isn't even a 65 anymore, but I do want to ask myself this question. What are the best RQ65s in the game, right? It is one of the worst RQs that you can ever unpack. A lot of the cars aren't even accurate of their rarity anymore. I feel like a lot of RQ65s, they perform worse than 64s and 63s nowadays. That being said, some of them are still pretty good. And today I want to answer the very simple question. What are the best 65s? At the end of the video, I'll give you my personal opinion on the top 5 RQ65 cars in the game as well. Now, what led me to creating this video was that during the most recent final for the Mazda RT24-P, I believe. it's a long name. I had a look at my fuse pile. This is a very current photo of the situation in my garage right now. This is a screenshot that I took literally yesterday, and this is my current fuse pile. Now, to most people, this is just anybody else's fuse pile, right? I mean, well, besides the Morgan Price car, I think a lot of people will leave that unlocked, but I'm leaving it unlocked because I can see that car being dispensable to me. But anyway, this is my fuse pile. And I think most people would say, oh, okay, it is what it is. We'll fuse most of these cars away. The BMW, the B40, maybe even the Corvette, right? But to me, this photo tells a story. It tells a very, very interesting story that has been lasting for years at this point. And the interesting part about this photo are these two cars right here, the B40 as well as the Mitsubishi. These cars aren't just cars sitting in my fuse pile. These cars are genuine survivors, okay? The B40 has been in my garage since the beginning of APGP, and I think the Mitsubishi is around the same time. So we're talking over a year here that these two cars have been in my garage. These two cars have remained stocked. The thing is, the weird thing about these RQ65s is that they're too bad for me to invest in, but they're also not that bad where I want to fuse them away, because I feel like they might bring value if they go down in an ultra rare, if they go down to ultra rare in a rarity change. So the thing about these two cars that make them really interesting is that although they're in my fuse pile, although they're RQ65, and many players, especially for the B40's case, many players wouldn't think twice about fusing away. The interesting story about it is that those two cars has outlived the 3 epics that I'm putting as an example at the bottom. Obviously, they've outlived hundreds of epics. I mean, in the most recent 3 tri-series, excluding the Mazda, because I didn't use anything for the Mazda, but I spent a lot of resources on the Automobili, on the Draco, and the Ford Supervan. I think between those 3 tri-series alone, I've probably spent along the lines of 60 or even more epics, or I've fused away 60 or even more epics, right? And some of the cars that did not survive included the RQ79. I mean, it's the echelon of epics. Ginetta G50. Now, don't get your whatever, hair in a twist, nose in a twist, ties in a twist, whatever it is. I have duplicates of the Ginetta. I have one fully upgraded, but obviously, like, I fused away a duplicate version of the Ginetta. I fused away an epic prize car in the Jaguar F-Type. I will bring that up whenever I can. And also, I fused away, just an example of a high RQ epic, an RQ76 Volvo V60. So why do those two RQ65 have the privilege of surviving for that long, where me as a player, I'm more bothered, or I would prioritize fusing away an RQ79 and 76 in a prize car over 265s? And that's why I want to talk about, some of the best RQ65s in the game and why they might be able to bring value. The main reason why I'm keeping them around is because those two are pretty decent 65s. Like, being a 65 isn't a good thing, but if they do go down to ultra rare, they're going to be fantastic. Another great example is the Mercedes S65, which is an RQ63 in Top Drives. It used to be an epic, and in the one and only rarity change that happened with tokens, the S65 went from an epic to an ultra rare, and now it's like the best city street small car in the game, and I've never had the chance to unpack an S65. The rarity change that came with tokens, or at least the last rarity change for high-end cars, came about 2 years ago now at this point, and I've still never had the privilege to get an S65. So because of that, that FOMO, because of that fear, I want to keep the B40 and the Mitsubishi around just in case they become ultra rares. They're going to be very useful. And that brings me to the next point. What are the keepers? Okay, so I think that the best 65s in the game are the ones that are capable of remaining 65 RQ65, in today's climate, in today's meta. Basically, cars that can beat some of the best ultras in the game, like the BMW M5 or maybe even the Maxi, right? Or another reason that makes a 65 fantastic is that if they were to become an ultra, if they were to become RQ64, they would become great ultras, fantastic ultras, game changers. So I want to talk about the keepers, okay? And it's going to be a step-by-step process because there are a lot of RQ65s in the game. There are like 89 RQ65 cars in the game, more than any other RQ, right? It's crazy. It's imbalanced. It's oversaturated. We hate it. But I do want to find the best ones. And to find the best ones, we got to filter out all the crap first, okay? Now let's get into it. Let's talk about all the crap. Look at this, ladies and gentlemen, okay? My goodness. I mean, you don't see this anywhere else in any other RQ. This, I'm not joking you, you're not seeing this as a joke, okay? This is every single all-surface tire RQ65 car in the game right now, as I'm recording this video. There is no RQ. There is no RQ in top drives where you would find so many all-surface tire cars jumbled up in one RQ. It's ridiculous. Think about how many RQ79 all-surface tire cars in the game. I'm pretty sure there's no more than 5. Okay, I'm pretty sure there's no more than 5. But look at the amount of all-surface tire cars that come to RQ65. And the main issue is that because Hutch is so reluctant of making rarity changes, so what happens is that they've realized that a lot of these cars are not as good as they used to be, so they'll bring them down to RQ65, but they can't go any lower. That's the problem. They can't go any lower, so 65 just gets built up, Think of it this way, okay? If you guys have ever gone hiking before, those little privy bathrooms, those little outhouses? So what happens, how it works is that campers, they will go there, they'll go to the privies, and obviously they'll do their business, right? The first person there, he's gonna take a crap, and the poop is gonna go all the way down to the bottom of the hole, because what happens in a privy, I don't know why this is the analogy I'm choosing, but I'm choosing it anyway. So, how it works is that the privy, they dig a hole all the way at the bottom, right? And the poop goes all the way down to the bottom. The thing is, that thing doesn't get cleaned out, or, the privy doesn't change until the next start of the season for hiking. At least that's what happened when I went hiking back in like October a couple of years ago. So how it works is that, over the course of a couple months, before they move the privy to a different location, the same people will be pooping in the same hole. But the problem is the poop doesn't go, to the bottom anymore, More poop will accumulate over time. It'll get higher and higher and higher. That's exactly the same thing with the RQ65s, right? So at the start, there might have only been like, I don't know, 10 RQ65 all-surface tire cars. But since there's already a limit. RQ65 is a limit, Hutch doesn't want to do a rarity change, so nothing can go lower than 65. If you're the worst epic, you're going to go to 65. Even if you perform worse than that, you're just going to keep going down to that RQ. So every single update that comes in, when more RQ65s are added to the game and more rarity and more RQs are changing, everything just gets shoveled down to 65. All the crap, all the worst stuff will get down to 65, and you just end up with, crap like this. It's ridiculous. So over here, the eye test will tell you that all these cars are RQ65. But if you play the game, you will know that not even half of these cars perform like an RQ65 should. So, okay, all-surface tires. Let's talk about it. How many of these cars are actually worthy, in my opinion, to holding that RQ65 badge? Ready? 3, 2, 1. Boom. Oh, it's a slow transition. Okay, look at that. Literally out of everything here, I'm pretty sure only about these 6 or 7. Yeah, 7 cars are worthy of being RQ65, or they might be a fantastic RQ64 if they were to go down. What I'm trying to say here is that everything that I blurred out doesn't even deserve to be a 65 or even a 64. They need to go down to ultra rare, 63, 62, 61, 60, around that range, right? Now, how did I come down to the conclusion that these 7 were the best of the bunch? Well, what I did, again, this is a massive list, so I don't think you can really see it. The point is not for you to see every single time. The point is just for me to prove to you that I've already done the times. I've already done, the research, as much research as I could on Top Drive's records. So basically what I did was I put every RQ65 all-surface tire car up against the Alpha Stelvio 2.2, which is the best ultra all-surface ultra rare. And the only cars, these 7 cars that I've highlighted are the only cars that are able to take a win of the RQ64 Ultra Rare. That is to say that every single epic that I blurred out cannot beat the Ultra Rare RQ64 Stelvio. And this is all if they're fully upgraded. I know some of them not. I know some of the cars here listed don't have all of the times documented, but it still gives us a very, I guess, decent outlook at how bad they might perform at the times that they do have. So overall, this is my final assessment of all the RQ65 all-surface tower cars. I think 3 of them might stay epic, which means that like if there were a rarity change and I was the one deciding what cars go up and down, only 3 RQ65s that are actually RQ65s should stay RQ65, if that makes sense. So only 3 cars are kind of, you know, holding their weight, and those are both the Buicks, the Holden Commodore, and the Buick Regal, the same car, as well as the Volvo EX90. And then, you know, RQ64 Energy, the next 4 cars that you see here are cars where I can see them remaining as an RQ65, but if they were to go down to an ultra rare, they'd be fantastic. And those would be cars like the Porsche Cayenne, the Mini JCW, the Ram, and the Ford F-150 Lightning. And then every other car that is listed at the bottom, I feel should be less than 64 RQ. So this is how I'm going to be filtering out the crap, okay? Like basically every card that gets a little gold border over here is going to go into a kind of like my final consideration for the top 5, you know, RQ65s in the game. So everything in the bottom here, it's just trash. And that's why I didn't want to, you know, initially when I wanted to make this video, I wanted to do a tier list, but I was like, wait, no, a tier list would be so boring because I'd just be putting about 80% of the cars in hot garbage tier anyway. So we're going to break it up. Now, moving on to another niche. We're talking about rear-wheel drive, front-wheel drive performance tires, slick tires, and low. These are all the RQ65 cars that fall between that niche. Rear-wheel drive, front-wheel drive performance, slick, and low. Okay, all that kind of stuff. A lot of cars. Once again, a lot of cars for one RQ. Okay, now we're going to filter it out. Let's see what are the good ones, and boom, there you go. So you're left off with 6 cars that are able to perform as expected of their RQ, okay? RQ65, or 7 cars actually, because yeah, that Mazda Zetus on the top right corner is also included. I didn't see that at first. So again, here is the comparison sheet. Again, I'm not expecting you to look at every single time. You can pause if you want to, but the Ultras that I placed it up against was the Peugeot 306 Maxi, the Alfa 4C Spider, the Lotus Elise Cup 250, and the BMW M5. Now, one question you might be wondering is, Blossom, why did you highlight the Alpha 4C and 8C RQ65 Epics if they don't win any race? Because they don't, right? They don't win any races. So why did I highlight them? Because we already know that the Peugeot 306 Maxi is going up to an Epic. So what I did was that I actually deleted the Maxi from the comparison. So if you delete the Maxi from the comparison, then the Alpha 4C and the Alpha 8C are actually, you know, the best in some races. I think it's Hairpin Road, yeah, 42.46 is the time. So they're the best in that sense, and I think it's like Laguna Seca 147.37 is pretty decent as well, only losing to like the BMW M5 and stuff like that. So again, I'm putting it up against the best of the best ultra rares. I understand it might not be fair to put it up against a Maxi because the Maxi is going to go up to an Epic, but still, I think that there are a lot of RQ65 low ground clearance, slick tire performance or slick tire cars that are definitely underperforming and shouldn't be deserving of that RQ65 tag. So overall, in summary, I do believe that, okay, first of all, Audi Auto Union is a god. That thing shouldn't be 65. That thing should be like 72, let's be honest. And then might stay epic would be the Lotus Exige 265 and the Mazda Zetus. Which is to say that if I, again, hypothetically, if I was in charge of changing all the RQs, then I would be keeping the Lotus and the Mazda as an epic. And then what I would think would be great 64s, but could also be epic, they'll just be pretty weak 65s, but at least I think they're not out of their depth entirely, are going to be the Bufori, the Camaro, the Alphas, well, the Alphas, right, the 8C and the 4C. So I think these 4 cars down here, they could stay as 65s, but they would be weak. But they will be fantastic 64s. I think the Lotus Exige and the Zetus, they'll definitely, I think they can tread water, right? They can stay at a 65, and then obviously the Auto Union is way above. Every car that is not listed here, once again, I believe shouldn't even be a 64. I think it should be below 64. A lot of these cars are definitely and heavily underperforming. So, moving on to the next niche. Again, this is performance medium ground clearance cars. Same thing. I'm putting up against the Cadillac CT4V as well as the Mercedes AMG S65. S65 is the best car for the drags against all the 65s. It's actually really sad. The only car that manages to make a dent is the Chrysler 300C Final Edition because it has 91 MRA. So it wins in the 1 mile, 150 in the longer drags, and is also really good on the city street small. Now that's huge because the second best car and the best ultra rare is a Mercedes-Benz AMG S65. But the fact that the 65 is able to beat the 63, I mean, it makes sense. That should happen, right? especially on its main niche, which is, you know, city streets, medium and small. So, okay, I think I'm going to highlight the 300C. That's pretty good. But everything else highlighted here, the SRT8, the M5, the HSV, all of those cars I don't think are deserving of RQ65. They can't even beat things like the Cadillac CT4, and they can't even beat things like the Mercedes. Now again, this is a very arbitrary test, or a very superficial photo that I'm showing you. I'm not even showing the twisty times, but the twisty times, well, you can bet your ass that it's on the Cadillac CT4 to win. Anyway, moving on to the next niche, or I guess the leftovers. So these are the rest of the RQ65s that I've yet to cover. So these are going to be your off-road tires, your four-wheel drive low ground clearance, and those are the two main niches that I haven't covered, right? The off-road tires and the four-wheel drive low ground clearance. Again, let's highlight one of the cars that I think are pretty decent. Ready? 3, 2, and 1, and there you go. So again, these are the epics where I feel like they can handle their own as an epic. They can definitely handle their own as an RQ65. That includes things like the Porsche 924, the Opel Corsa, the Bluebird, the Buick, the Citroen Zara, Chevrolet Colorado, the Outlander, the Land Rover Defender Works V8, and the Caterham 270. These are the cars where I think, now I know a little bit of a hot take is the Defender Works V8. That could go down to an ultra, honestly. But the problem with the Land Rover Defender is that it doesn't really compete with much within its niche. So it could stay as a 65, and it still wouldn't be outperformed by anything because there aren't a lot of British off-roaders. It's just that and the Ranger Raptor, which is like RQ61. But anyway, Land Rover Defender aside, if you think that should go down to ultra rare, I completely understand that as well. But that car aside, I think the rest of these cars are definitely a solid argument for staying epic no matter what. You've got things like the Bluebird, which are just, you know, just miles ahead of like the Nissan Silvias and the Lancia Stratas, which is terrible. You got the Outlander, which is definitely better than the Pajero Evolution, as well as the Ford Raptor, for example, and even better than the Defender Works and the Ranger Tremor, right? So these are some of the better cars within the RQ, where if they didn't move down to ultra rare, I wouldn't bat an eye. That being said, though, this is basically what I think are the short list for some of the best RQ65s in the game. So some of these cars, like I said, it's a mix, right? Some of these epics that you see over here that highlighted are epics where I think they should stay epic. Some others where I feel like they would be pretty weak 65s and they'll be really strong 64s, but I can still see them as 65s, right? Things like the Chevrolet Camaro ZL1, I can see that being a really good 64, but it could be a really weak 65. It balances that really fine line of 65 and 64. And there are some cars that are gonna need to do that. I just feel like there are a lot of cars right now that are on that 65 line that are so way off. Like they don't even perform close to an RQ65. I guess you can argue that the Camaro ZL1, and I'm using this as an example, does kind of performs as a 65. I feel like it would perform really well as a 64. It can perform as a 65, but not too well. You know what I mean? Anyway, before we end it off, like I said, I wanted to talk about my top 5 RQ65s in the game. And obviously, I'll be picking my top 5 from, you know, the nominees that you see here. Think about it this way. These are just all the nominees for the top 5 RQ65s in the game. Everything else that is not highlighted here, I've already eliminated and taken out of consideration. Every RQ65 that's in the game right now that isn't listed in this screen, in my opinion, doesn't deserve to be an RQ65, and it needs to go down to 64 or below. I would say definitely below 64 for a lot of those cars. So, top 5. Let's get into it. Next one, as you can see, in my opinion, the top 5 RQ65s in the game, I think everyone saw this coming, include the Citroen Zara, the Nissan Bluebird, the Audi Otto Union, the Caterham 270, and the Mitsubishi Outlander. Now, out of the 5 cars over here, I genuinely think that both the Audi and the Caterham shouldn't even be 65 in the first place. These two cars need to be way up and above. The Audi Otto Union, maybe 72. The Caterham 7270, maybe 70, right? But I guess you can make an argument for the other 3 cars that they can remain RQ65. Things like the Zara, things like the Bluebird, things like the Outlander. Outlander, you can even say it'll be a really good 64. It's kind of on that fine line of the Camaro ZL1. And then everything else at the bottom over here are the cars where I feel like they could be 65s. They won't be the best, but if they went down to RQ64, they'll definitely be fantastic. So that is to say that if I pulled any of these RQ65s right now, I wouldn't fuse them away, because I'm afraid that they might become ultra rare and I'll never be able to get them. So if I pull them as an epic, I will keep them around, because in the event that they become an ultra rare, you know, in the near future, hopefully, they will become very useful cars. So that's just one thing to consider. So yeah, anyway, as you can see, from the start of the video, stuck in my fuse pile were these two cars, the Mitsubishi Outlander as well as the Bufori CS. And in the end, you know, just in my opinion, but I think that these two cars are some of the better RQ65's in the game. And, you know, they do bring value, whether it's, you know, a value of becoming a really good ultra rare, or the value of just them being a really good bargain. I mean, things like the Bluebird, the Auto Union, and the Caterham 7270 are cars where it doesn't matter if they're 65, I will max them easily. It doesn't hurt at all because they hit way above their weight anyway. But anyway, guys, that's gonna be it for today. I hope you enjoyed today's video. A little bit different, took a lot of time to process my head through this one. It was not easy looking through all the crappy times of all these RQ65s and being constantly reminded when I made this video that the game is so heavily unbalanced. But I hope you enjoyed it. It was more of an informative one. This is my top 5 RQ65s. And outside of the top 5, everything at the bottom, all these honorable mentions over here, I think are still really, you know, strong-ish RQ65s. So anyway, guys, that's gonna be it for today. This has been the best of the worst. Hope you guys have a great day. I'm gonna stay safe, wash your hands, and blossom out. Peace.
Bro, this song just makes me so happy.
Me too.
Imagine being Asian in the 50s, looking nifty, leather jacket, looking sleek, look like Presley, look so deadly. Got a jukebox back at home, feeling jazzy, turn it on and play it slow, like the movies with the ladies.
They so fine.
Imagine being Asian in the 50s, looking nifty, leather jacket, looking sleek, look like Presley, look so deadly. Got a jukebox back at home, feeling jazzy, turn it on and play it slow, like the movies with the ladies.
They so fine.
Sit back, relax in my Bonneville Pontiac. Hold tight all night, cruise to Jacksonville
Atlantic.
Blonde hair, don't care, look